Let's talk about how to play knockout. The first thing you're going to want to do is to create 2 even teams of players out of your students. So you might choose to either assign teams randomly whenever you're ready to play, or you might choose to have preset teams so it's easy to call students to the board to line up. Something that I really like doing was creating knockout teams every month and changing them monthly so students knew who to line up with every single time, but it didn't get too boring having the same teammates the whole entire year. The most important thing though is that you have an even number of players on both teams. If the teams do end up being odd, because that does happen quite often, just designate one player from the less populated team to play twice. That means that if at any point they get out, they get to come immediately back in and act as the second player. When you are ready to play, you can advance to this slide, and this is a signal to the students that the game is about to begin. My students always loved reading this out loud in a funny voice, like, "Are you ready?" Something like that. But it's also important that this is the slide that signals to students that they should be standing in line, their body should be facing the board, their eyes should be watching the screen, and their voices are off, because as soon as you switch to the next slide, the game has begun. Every knockout game is compiled similarly to this one, with the 2-sided screens. The left side is always for one team, and the right side is always for the other team. Every single slide contains a content-related question, like the one you see here, although it's going to change based on what the topic of the knockout game is. So for example, it might be a math fact that each student has to answer. It might be this one where they have to read a clock, or maybe it's a shape that they have to identify, things like that. And it might be ELA if it's an ELA game, it might be science if it's a science game, and so on. And like I mentioned, the game you see here in this example is from my 3rd grade review for telling time. So in this case, each player at the front of the line has to tell the time that they see on the analog clock. Now, as soon as that slide appears, like I said, the game has started, and the first person to answer correctly wins. This means that that player gets to stay in the game. The person who answers incorrectly, or maybe answers correctly but doesn't answer quickly enough, is out. And this means that he leaves the line to sit in the cheering section, or whatever it is that you want to call the sidelines, where the ousted students go. Okay, so since he got it wrong or didn't answer correctly in time, he moves to the sidelines and he gets to sit and cheer on his teammates as the game continues. And then, as you see in this image, the kid who got it right gets to go to the back of the line and waits for his next turn. Play continues just like this. Every single time there's a new slide, there's a new pair of students at the front of the line that faces off, and the same rules apply. If you get it right first, you stay in and you go to the end. If you get it wrong or you don't get it right in time, then you are sent to your sidelines. Now, let's talk about what happens when the special slides appear. Players should always be ready for one of the following: either a knockout slide, a free pass slide, or a pick a pal slide. And I'm going to walk you through each one of these to show you what it looks like and what happens when you see them. Let's start with knockout. Any player who sees knockout on their side of the screen is out automatically, no questions asked. And it's important to note that the knockout might appear for both players on both sides of the screen, or only one. It's really all about the luck of the draw with these special slides, and it's really important to stress to students that this is a totally random occurrence. It's okay to be bummed when you get the knockout slide, but it's part of the game. And honestly, it's part of what makes it so fun. Next, we have our free pass slides. Similar to knockout, free pass slides can occur on one or both sides of the screen. Unlike knockout slides, free pass slides means that the player gets to stay in the game, no questions asked. So anyone who sees a free pass slide on their side of the screen automatically gets to go to the back of their line to wait for the next turn. Pick a pal slides are the best because these ones mean that you get to pick a player on your team who is currently out sitting on the sidelines, and you get to bring them back into the game. Just like the other special slides, Pick a Pal can appear on both sides of the screen or just one at a time. So when you have a Pick a Pal slide and you pick your player to come back into the game, you as the original player and the player who you're picking to come back in get to go right to the end of the line to wait for your next turn. Play is going to continue like this until you have one team with players standing and then another team with nobody left. So a lot of times this comes down to maybe just one or two players. Sometimes it's a whole entire team that stays in. Every game is different, which is one of the reasons I love Knockout, and it's a really fun way to teach your kids not only the content in the classroom, but how to be a good sport, how to support your other students, how to be kind friends, how to be good losers. There are so many little lessons ingrained in Knockout that go way beyond the content.